Hello, dear ones. Welcome to another conversation on the different shades and shapes of love. The kind of conversation I think we must have more of. As always, before we start, can I invite you to take a moment of centering and breathing with me so we take a pause together? So sit down with your back up, drop your shoulders, relax, close your eyes, breathe. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. When you're ready, gently open your eyes. And now listen with your heart. Today's shade of love is release. Release was the love that Rob gave me when he ended our 8-year relationship with the parting words. I could never be the partner you want in your head, he said. I didn't have the clarity of mind to comprehend this beyond our fights over getting married. I wanted to, he didn't. My bleeding heart could not feel past the resistance to a different life ahead. He wanted me to stay on in our apartment, which we furnished together, and we will move out. I said no because that was the only space he had in Singapore. I moved back to my parents in Ang Mo Kio, but not without crying buckets because 8 years of growing up together from our 20s to our 30s felt like forever to let go. Yet time healed, as did pumping at the gym, doing 1,000 crunches, and burying myself deep into my all-consuming startup work. Maybe it was also because I could no longer bear to see how heavy-hearted Ma and Ba were whenever I was mournful. Rob's words, however, lingered in my head. I certainly cherished and loved him, but maybe I had treasured the idea and ideals of being in a relationship more. Back then, I certainly did not have the confidence of being a woman without a partner. By good grace, we remain close friends up to today. I remember feeling wiser when I chose the word release to describe this significant change in my life, writing the book. Instead of using words like break or ditch, right, as I actually use verbs to describe all the different shades of love. This wisdom got me thinking of the oak tree to pair with this story. Oaks are known to stand tall in the face of storms, choosing to shed or release its spreading branches rather than to bow low. The oak's towering presence and its unbending nature also makes it a symbol of wisdom and endurance. Now, in terms of who I would invite to join me in this conversation of love, I was initially scratching my head about who to have a conversation with, right, on this shade, about holding on tightly and letting go lightly of groundbreaking transitions. And then voila, Susan was sent to me that week with a group of lawyers who wanted to discuss mental well-being for the legal industry. Unlike me, who has always been seduced by possibilities, especially in my work and vocation, Susan spent 30 years as a top corporate and employment lawyer before deciding to switch to what might seem to most, at least to me, to be the other end of the line 2.5 years ago. She became a life coach. Hello, Susan. Thank you so much for bravely saying yes to being part of this podcast experiment to discuss love and how we can bring love, right? When we discuss pressing issues of our time. I'm really just thrilled. We had a most wonderful conversation after we met for the first time. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Susan, when I was reading this chapter earlier again on release, even just when I was preparing for this conversation, it was quite surreal for me to literally see the chapters of my life unfolding. You know what I mean? Like before my eyes, and then to be reminded again that by writing this book, it's such a physical and permanent and tangible reminder that life is a story of transitions. Just by flipping the pages for me, right? Because this book is really to chronicle what I've gone through in my journey, and that I'm always sort of leaving one chapter behind while moving along to the next chapter. And how when life shook me to the core, and it definitely did with us, having it been an 8-year relationship, we were really, really close. And we really like each other. We were really best of friends, right? I would still call him one of my best friends, So I was shaken so much to the core by life, not just by this relationship, but also by the marriage that broke, after this relationship. That I think this shake was also, now that I look back, right, by flipping the chapters, was a sign of greatness to come. Like greatness was just round the corner. And that really came to me, right, this morning when I was preparing for this conversation. So obviously it's not without pain. But it's to know now that every time I'm shaken, that greatness could be round the corner.
Right.
It's quite exciting. For me also, I think the other thing that came out for me was with the book now in hand, which is such a privilege, is to see that a bad chapter doesn't mean my story is over. Does that make sense?
It makes sense,
right?
Yeah.
So what for you then motivated you to release such a big part of you? I mean, 30 years, I would consider it big. I wouldn't say long, but I would say big. But you can say it's just long and not big. For you to then to make this release and choose to stop being a lawyer or a practicing lawyer. I guess you always be a lawyer, but you're no longer practicing.
Yeah. I would say with surprising difficulty. It all looks so obvious now. But at that time, I was afraid to do it. My reputation was there. My professional credibility was there. It was what I was kind of good at doing also.
Right.
So it was safe. And there was also a financial security of knowing I was going to get a paycheck every month,
Absolutely.
All of that.
Yeah.
And so what pushed me was purpose. It was purpose. It was knowing that I could have a bigger impact as a life coach, and that I had sort of taken that purpose quite far as a lawyer. And what is my purpose? My purpose is to illuminate the possibility of possibilities for myself and others. And I felt that as a lawyer, there are many, many good lawyers who can carry on that good work. And maybe there are just a few of us who are both former lawyers and, coaches who need to do a different kind of work that is also impactful.
Yeah.
So it was purpose, but it was really scary. Yeah. And I myself needed coaching.
I totally resonate with you when you said, it was scary, right?
Yeah, and the weird thing about that is realizing that in a way success, in that sense, success is itself the barrier.
Yes.
It's I guess you could call it your comfort zone. My comfort zone. I'd spent my whole life doing, okay, this was good. Oh, I get a pat on my head. I get maybe a medal. I get a ranking. Oh, so I must be doing something right. And I try this thing and okay, and it seems to work. And so you get, you're really, without too much effort, you're doing well. And so it is that very success that makes it so hard to open the door and leave it.
Yes.
And so it's sort of like the paradox of success.
And that's such an astute observation and a really interesting perspective for us to unpack a little bit.
Really goes to also then, how do you, what does success mean?
Yeah.
Doesn't
And
it?
also how that success, that notion of success first comes about, right? What do we define as success?
Yeah.
And then how that success, when we achieve it, how that then links back to, I think you talked about comfort zone, but also there's a certain sense of self, right? Identity.
Yeah, for
that's,
sure.
That's so tied to that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and how did you then move past that, right? Or through that, with the fear and the doubt and the insecurity, particularly financial, right? Security is going to be compromised. Yeah.
Well, I did the things that I did have some control over. So I worked on, I went to see. I made sure I had a financial advisor, sort of, work things through,
right,
with me. I went to learn more and more about coaching, and then in particular the neuroscience of coaching, so that I would have. I would be bringing something forth responsibly. I wouldn't just be making it up. I would actually have proper frameworks that I would be bringing. So I did what I could, things that I had some control over. Just like you went to the gym and you did 1,000 crunches. There are some things that even in the midst of all of this, the whirl and the chaos and the overwhelm, there are you can hang on to those things that you do have control over. And even if that is saying that, well, I'm just going to take it a minute at a time, that is something you do have control over. You do have agency over whether how you're going to spend the next minute. You're going to breathe, that's good, that's the next minute.
Yeah. How did you feel about moving from something that for so long, as you said, your identity, what you do, to going into a new, I guess, identity, which I'm sure you're still building, because even I am still building.
Yes.
With every time I make a shift.
Yeah.
How has it been coming onto this new identity for you?
That's really interesting. I think first I will say that it's still ongoing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And in a way, even the legal profession, that my legal career was still ongoing. There is no end. You just keep growing. And what I didn't expect was that once I sort of like stood in this space and said, okay, I'm a life coach, things just started happening. People started showing up. What I needed in the moment would show up. So I started coaching. I really thought that I know how to coach. I can coach on anything.
Yeah.
And then I realized that even coaches need a niche.
Right. Yes.
Even coaches need a niche. And how what was I going to do that? And then up pops something in my inbox about build a real business as a coach. So that like that people would show up and give me some help or point me in a direction. It's like synchronicity. People I would never ever have met if I had been a lawyer.
Yeah, let's expand a little bit on that, right?
Yeah.
How it actually changes moving into another realm just expands a whole new world of sorts to you, right? Like you said, people you have never met, you would have never met if you stay on as a lawyer.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think is it's the benefit of that, right? The merits that come from walking out of one space to another and then expanding, a whole new world of connections and experiences and interactions.
That in itself, you're creating something that didn't exist before together. As what you said about co-creating.
Yeah.
It's who knows, but perhaps this mental wellness program that the group of lawyers came to talk to you about over something called the Mindful Business Charter,
Yeah.
which is about being aware of and being intentional about removing unnecessary stress. There is necessary stress and then there's avoidable stress. So really focusing on the avoidable stress. But, maybe that would never have happened or wouldn't have happened now, but for the fact that I became a coach.
Yes. We would never have met,
Who
right?
is an ex-lawyer?
Yes.
When you look back, when one looks back, you begin to see that every decision, every step, everything you did do, everything you didn't do has led you to this very moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so in that sense, when we look at change and we look at transition, it's actually happening all the time. At every moment. At every moment we are transitioning. At every moment we are stepping into. And so that also means that at every moment we are letting go. And it is us who kind of make it into something that's big and scary or not. And I don't mean to in any way invalidate when it is scary.
Of course.
The reality is that we do feel fear. The good news is that I see a sort of a line below which we are either in a place of fear or we're in a place of love and possibility. One or the other.
Are they actually really two sides of the same coin?
They are two sides of the same coin. They are two sides, two parts of the same coin, close to the edge. And where it flips over from fear into love and possibility, that crossover point is courage.
It is courage, right?
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's courage where you're still scared.
Yeah.
But you just know that you are going to go forward somehow.
Absolutely.
That feeling.
And we are both, to the listeners out there, we're both like really staring into each other's eyes because we recognize that feeling. Like we feel it in our body right now as we're talking about it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I can feel my heart beating.
Me too.
Right?
Me too, right here. Right?
We both got our hands on our, like the center of our sternums.
Yes.
Reliving
but that's, I think it's an important, I love how you vividly describe this transition, this crossing the chasm almost. And it's actually really, because you said very much to the edge of the coin, which is really a very thin separation, right? And then when you actually cross over from fear to love and possibilities, it's actually courage. And I think this is important because when we cross over, it's not because we were fearless.
No.
Right? Courage is about knowing the fear, and that's why we're both holding holding our chest, because we remember that so well, and then still, crossing over, knowing that that's gonna be where the possibilities are for where we want to be.
Yeah,
right?
And sometimes we cross because. Sometimes because we're just tired of being in fear and paralysis and stuckness. Sometimes we're just tired, and sometimes we are driven.
Sometimes it's an active choice.
It's an active choice, and sometimes we're pulled.
Yes, true.
So true. In my case, it was all of the above.
Yeah,
all of those things, right?
Yeah, me too.
It's not one thing; it's everything. And then when we do cross, as you say, actually, you don't. It doesn't mean that we forget or we try not to look at the fear or we dismiss it or we disregard it. It's not that. I think we bring it along.
Yeah.
You actually bring it along, but you are now standing in a place of possibility and love, and you can be with that fear. The difference is that it doesn't stop you.
Yeah. Do you think that fear, once you brought it along across the line, then because it's now standing, it's so cute that we're personifying fear. Now that fear is standing next to love and possibilities, that actually fear also got transformed, right? Not that it becomes something else. It's still fear, but it transforms in a way that is allowing us to ground ourselves, right, into still looking at, the checks and the
Yes.
boundaries and
Yes. I get exactly what you're saying. I think what you're pointing to is that fear is really also part of us.
Yes.
It has a role to play.
Absolutely.
And actually, if we can honor that, really honor that, and bring, be inclusive of fear, we might notice that there is wisdom there that we can take.
Yeah.
That there is a gift in there that we can take.
There's a protective role.
And pay attention to that.
That's right.
Pay attention to that and take what's useful about that. So in my case, it was, making sure that, I was learning this stuff and going to be, as effective as possible and continuing to learn. You never really finish learning about coaching. And getting my house in order financially.
Yes.
So it's telling me, like, you can't just sort of
throw caution to the wind
off and do this thing without paying attention to what that fear is. So taking the wisdom and the gift from it, and not acting from it, not getting stuck in it.
Yeah, I think that's really a powerful conversation we just had about fear, right? I mean, the way we've unpacked it, it's not to say, try to get rid of fear, try to overcome fear, but to actually bring it along. I would say, relating back to the chapter, to the story, right? I think I used the word release, Susan, because I actually felt so much gratitude, right? That what was obviously fearful, how I was so thrown into chaos from having only been with this person whom I obviously also like a lot, and to a large extent it's also part of my identity. But when I wrote the book, obviously it was with a more reflective state and mind and perspective.
Yeah.
I used the word release instead of break or dish because it allows me to move on, go forth, and therefore the release was not about what I have lost, but almost as if it's allowing me to so not seeing it as loss, as a release, because that was the only way I was going to be able to create.
Right,
the next.
I really love the way you say that. There's a sense of allowing.
Yes, the permission.
There's a sense of I have this image of a river.
Yes.
As you speak, an image of a river in which it was, you were in a beautiful place for years, and then maybe there was a little bit of turbulence because I don't know whether it was your choice or whether it was a mutual choice.
It was his choice.
His choice.
Yeah, it was his choice.
So turbulence.
Yes,
and then
turbulence.
perhaps you then went through some narrow channel and hit some rocks and all of that.
For sure.
But you know what? It took that for you to keep flowing to where you are now. Look at where you are now.
Thank you. Yes. And I think that's why there's so much. The reason I called up gratitude was also what you talked about, bring fear along. That actually there is gratitude that we can actually give to fear, right? In the sense that instead of fear being sometimes not the most constructive emotion or friend, we can actually, and you said that, right? Fear help you to just, get your finances in order, make sure you're not just throwing caution to the wind and all of that. So, I mean, for me especially, the gratitude, really is huge. And what's just come out for me is that, and I kept saying this, right? He's a good friend. He really is still one of my best friends, right? I just realized that actually you only lose what you cling to, right? And because So it's not a loss for me. I mean, it might be a loss in a one way of defining that experience, but it wasn't, because not only because maybe I didn't cling on to it, and so I didn't lose it, because we still have the relationship. It just takes a different form. It transformed.
You transformed.
Yes, but he has also.
Also.
And yet we have kept what really mattered anyway, right? And so not to even see that as that. And so something, that really just came up was that, yeah, we only really lose what we cling to. But if we don't see it as something that we own, that we must have, then maybe that sense of loss doesn't naturally become the response you need to feel.
Yeah. So I guess what you're, what you are really pointing to is, again, our perspectives, the perspective that we want to bring to the facts. And I think that really is maybe what this is all about, the ability to, there is an experiencing self, the one that's scared, and the one that's not sure, and the one that already is moving, is already in flow. And being able to sort of be an observer to one's own self, and to do that with a sense of love, a sense of curiosity, and a sense of no judgment, like what we're doing now with the benefit of hindsight, looking at the pages of your 50 Shades of Love. It's not waiting for hindsight. Right now, it's really, the hindsight is in the distance that we can put between ourselves, our observing selves, and our experiencing selves. And maybe from the observing self, just sort of pulling in, sort of asking, say, the wisest person you know.
Yeah.
Imagine the wisest person you know standing next to you and saying, "Wow, look at me, struggling away and angsting away and getting hours of coaching on this question of how, should I leave the legal profession? Should I take the leap?" I felt like it was taking a leap. And asking about it. And I think if I had actually done that, I think the truth would have been that I already know that I'm going to do it.
Yes.
If I was honest with myself, truly honest, if I could really see where I was going and stop making such a fuss about the leaving part and get on with the doing, get on with where I wanted to go. There was still an element of, I remember imagining that I was staying on the edge of a cliff, and then making the change was just stepping off it. That is a horrible feeling, since I'm scared of heights. And then I remembered that many years ago I was in a different situation, more personal maybe, and I felt I had been pushed off the edge of a cliff.
Yes.
And it was not a soft landing. And I felt as if I had shattered into a million pieces. And it was actually from shattering into a million pieces that I got to choose what I wanted to, how I wanted to be, what I wanted to take with me, what I was going to leave behind, and then actually to build a new mountain.
Yeah.
So it was just reminding myself that not to be afraid, even if you break into a million pieces,
because you already have had that experience, right? And just you using the description of a million pieces is really synchronous as well, because that's what happened to me, right? 15 years ago with a colossal collapse. What I had to go through, which, I spent a few pages in the book talking about with my ex-husband. And I think the million pieces that you talk about, literally, that's what I talked about also. I did not think that my heart was actually made of glass, because the way the breakage happened, there was just a million pieces. It's either the impact of that fall was so great that, that it created such a explosion, right, of the pieces. And I think to your point about then, because you kind of, you were kind of broken to that barren state almost. Falling from a high place, not by choice, you got pushed off the cliff and then landing almost 6 feet under in a million pieces. It allows you almost a fresh start of, choosing which are the parts that you're going to pick up, and then also which are the new parts that you're going to build. That's going to form this new mountain that's going to be you. That's going to be your life. Yeah. And when you were saying this, what I found was in approaching a transition, many a time when you talk about just taking that first step, right? Many a time we think we're saying no, to something because we're leaving behind something, right? Especially if that part is so dear, close, such a big part, such a comfortable part of us. But when we make that leap or that jump, instead of focusing on the no, which is what you're saying, don't keep on the itch, right? But then say yes, to what you're leaping forward to. And very often that yes is already in our head, in our heart, right? But the no is just so loud. The no of not leaving, of holding so tightly, it's so loud. Yeah. So I think maybe instead of in our mind, when you say, why am I saying no to this? Why am I saying no to this relationship? I don't want to say no to this relationship. I don't want to say no to this part of my life. I don't want to say no to this profession.
I've invested so much in it.
I've invested so much to it. But I felt, for me, I remembered, as hard as it was, when I reframed to saying, oh, it's not about me saying no. It's actually about me saying yes. Yeah. And that yes provided that energy for me to sort of move forward. Yeah. And I think that reframe was really helpful. And that got called out when you were talking about how you have to take that step.
I think reframing is critical. Reframing is about looking for that perspective that's going to give you the energy to keep going in the direction you're already going. Yeah. To get up from a million pieces and to shape what it's going to be. And that actually is a release. That is a release. You may not have chosen it, but you were given the gift of release.
I was.
And it is a gift.
It is a gift. And I think part of it, I still say that to him, actually. I do. And it is so interesting, though, to look back and to be grateful, for leaving, for having to leave. Yeah. And not realizing at that time that a gift was actually given to me. So I think to pick up on where you actually left off, right, before I interjected, sorry about that. But I think it is to also see, this that you're leaving behind in the way you look at it, is a gift. It's allowing yourself this gift of moving towards more of who you want to be, who you are here to be, and why you are here, right? And I think that reframe, that change of perspective is really powerful.
It's really like stepping back into your own flow, what you are supposed to be, where you're supposed to go. Just really allowing openness and trust and love, and really trust, I think, is really big because you know how in coaching the starting point, and this is why I love coaching, the starting point is that all of us, each of us, is already naturally creative and resourceful and whole. We already know our answers. There's nothing wrong, so that it's not like we're damaged or something. It's really just recognizing that wholeness, that resourcefulness, that creativeness. It's really, really trusting in that and recognizing it and letting that, unfold.
Unfold is the word, I think, and that's why the word unfold was coming to me as you were sharing, right? Because, that definitely happened to me. But I think a big part of that, to get to my wholeness though, right? To get to truly knowing who I am, it was important for me to know who I'm not. And to know who I'm not, I needed to shed layers and years of conditioning. And that's not something that I think it's going to just come by us saying, just do a reframe, right? There is work.
Yeah.
There is patience. There's love that you need to hold space for that work to unravel, the layers to be shed. Because the layers really make you see yourself sometimes in very sort of, siloed ways, right? Or what I like to call my separate selves or scattered selves.
Right.
I have a role as a woman, as a wife, as a daughter, as a professional, as a leader, and sometimes these two could be in conflict with each other because I had to hold up to a certain notion of how I should be, right? And so that I needed to shed a lot. And I think that's why, as much as I would not wish this state of having been broken to a million pieces on anybody, I am very grateful for that, because I was not needing to go through peeling layer by layer because I was broken to the most barren state of myself.
I've noticed that you've said grateful a few times in this conversation, and that really, that I really, really sense that in you, and that's important to you. I think must be one of your big values. What I love about that is that there's a recognition in there of appreciating everything as it is. That thing about gratefulness and appreciating that everything is maybe just as it's supposed to be right now, and just be grateful for the gift that is in it. Sometimes we have
supporting
to look so
me.
hard to it.
That's why I think I feel this gratitude. I feel like all this have happened to me to support me in my growth, right? In my journey, in why I'm here. And so there's a deep appreciation for that. And it's interesting how you picked it up, because I was recently asked what motivates me to do all the things I do, right? And what came out was actually all the things I do. When I was asked that question, what came out sort of pretty sort of impromptu was that they are all expressions of my gratitude. Whether it's writing a book, whether it's actually being an NMP, whether it's starting Hush and all of that, or teaching a yoga class, it's all an expression of gratitude. It feels like I have been looked after, and this is part of me, sort of paying it forward, expressing that gratitude, and then manifesting it in whatever shape and form that it came out. Yeah. So thank you for picking that up.
It's palpable. This energy that you have and that you give. It really is palpable. I'm feeling it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that's the other thing about us, isn't it? And all people, that we're actually relational beings.
Very much.
And your energy, I pick up, and I think being aware of that, and actually even thinking not with guilt, but but from a place of love and possibility. What in this moment, what is the energy that I'm bringing? Am I bringing more energy to myself and to others, or am I taking energy from myself and others? I think that's always a useful check-in with ourselves, because that's when we notice whether we are in a place of fear where we are depleting, or whether we're in a place of love and possibility where we are expanding that energy.
Yes.
But one thing that, as I look at your book and look at all the pages in that book, a lot of life lessons, hard won. It reminds me of this thing that has been going on recently since I became a coach, which is, as I was learning about coaching, it struck me, why was I not, the biggest beneficiary of coaching is, as you know, is that we learn about ourselves.
And the awareness, right? Yeah.
And awareness and choice. And I, it occurred to me that, I wish I had known this when I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't have to wait so many decades, I'm not going to mention exactly how many, to finally understand how I tick.
Yeah.
and how others tick.
Yeah.
And I think if I had known what makes me tick, what takes me to fear, what takes me to love, what takes me to possibilities, I would have saved myself a lot of pain, and I would sure have saved others a lot of pain that I did cause. And so it strikes me that this is something we need to learn in school.
I was just going to say this. Yes.
I think about how we go to school and we learn about the principles of science and history and mathematics and geography, and then we go to law school and we learn about the principles of contract and tort and evidence. At no point are we taught about the principles of ourselves. At no point.
Yes.
And to me, that makes as much sense as saying, all right, kiddo, you're going to have to learn how to count in the world.
Yeah.
You're going to have to learn how to multiply, divide, add, and subtract. And we're not going to teach you. You are going to go out into the world and you're going to have to figure this out yourself. It makes as much sense as that to me.
Yeah, I'm so totally with you, right? And you know that I'm actually doing a lot of work in mental health and mental well-being. And a big part of that is that mental health literacy needs to start really the moment that we are able to grasp, the concept, right?
Yeah.
That level of literacy should not be less important than the literacy that we are taught, or the numeracy. It should be actually alongside.
I would almost say it's fundamental.
Fundamental,
because we are the vehicles for all the skills that we're being taught in school.
Exactly. This physical structure.
But the source of those skills does not itself understand how it works.
Yeah.
And so I think we've missed something here. I really do.
Yeah, me too. I feel like as you're talking about tort and negligence and all of that, I was also thinking about, shouldn't we just not, just teach our kids only about memorizing dates of different battles in history, but actually, create a period to teach them how our thoughts work, right? What emotions are, how
where they
come from, and when you put these two together, how they actually drive you to act in a certain way. And, what are those choices that you will make, and how do you observe and sit with yourself and all of that?
Yeah.
I feel, without sounding sarcastic, I suspect it will make us make the world a better place than memorizing battle dates. And I think this is something perhaps it's important for us to keep sort of asking, pushing, recommending.
There are, the good news is that is a beginning already. There's positive psychology curriculum in schools. There is this wonderful initiative program called the Contentment Foundation.
Yes, oh my goodness, I was just going to say, of course, because we both know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
our
so
mutual friend, our lovely mutual friend. Yeah.
These things are beginning. They're just not mainstream.
That's right.
It's sort of like, imagine if teaching arithmetic wasn't mainstream. It's as, a question, as a bit of a...
Yeah, it's a question to definitely ponder with deep thought and actually also urgent action, if I may add.
And, the truth is that now all the stuff I learned in school, I don't remember any of it. If you ask me to count, I'll pull out my phone and pull out the calculator on my phone. If I need to remember a principle of law, I pull out, I do a lot, an online search, or I pull out a book. But this part, it's hard to pull out a book on it. It's really understanding. I really recognize when I am in fear, and I really recognize when I need to flip that courage and move into a different place. Why? Because I am more effective that way.
Yeah.
I bring more energy that way. I become an energy giver, not an energy taker.
But it's okay to take sometimes too, right? Because that's important.
There's no right or wrong to this.
Exactly.
But it is a choice.
It is a choice, and you are aware of it.
I have more agency over.
That's right.
How I want to be.
But I think, but this is an important part, right? What Susan and I have been speaking on is that we have to then look at this from, okay, it's not mainstream yet, as Susan said, and we all recognize that. What can we do as parents, in schools, right, at workplaces, particularly, I think, for our young, but actually for everyone, right? What can we do now to support those around us to make these transitions that they want to make, because they want to be closer to who they want to be and why they are here, and what will make them, come alive and feel joyful. One of that is it's to actually go seek for this sort of support. Whether it's a coaching support that you go for, a community that would allow you to sort of take your time to, and I use allow, right, to release, so that you can actually leap forward, and in that crossing, be there as you pluck up your courage to make that crossing, and be there when you land. What do those look like? I think it's a really important.
I think so. I think that just as we have teachers to teach us the skills, such as the battles in history, even more so, I think we need teachers, and they come in all shapes and forms.
They do.
But we need teachers to help us to understand the principles of ourselves.
Yes.
I really do believe that.
Yeah. And I think when we actually start thinking about, ourselves when we make transitions, life transitions, as well as others who are, around us, and we remain grounded in this love and possibilities that you mentioned, right? Yeah, bring fear along. I'm actually wrapping up these three things, right? Is that, we are crossing over, we are taking a leap towards love and possibilities. We bring fear along. Remember that we all can play a part in, each other's journey, in that change, in that transition. So with that, thank you so much, Susan.
It's my great pleasure.
Oh, thank you. This could go on, actually. This conversation could go on for a very long time. It was very similar to the last conversation Susan and I had, until we were chased out, actually, by the cafe because they had to close. Anyway, for our listeners out there, we always end the conversation with providing some resources for you to check out. The main resource that comes to mind for this conversation is that if you are drawn to, finding out more about coaching, there's certainly the International Coach Federation Singapore chapter that you can go for, but there are also other resources that you can look out for parents and teachers who want to learn more. Susan and I both mentioned the Contentment Foundation, so check them out as well. But I think also important to know that actually in this sort of awareness journey that we talked about, and having support, there are teachers all around you that comes in different shapes and sizes. So actually step up, go forward, and ask for support. And last but not least, we'll leave you once again with an invitation before we wrap up. What and who in your life do you need to let go of in order to be who you can be and to live the life you are here to live?